Yes, welcome aboard the Bhoycie Bus. It is the monthly review. Tony did so well and got so many subscribers last time that we thought we'll make a monthly habit of getting the big man back on. So Tony from the Four Times joins us again. We will be looking back at quite an eventful month, I would say June was, to say the least, considering there was only one Celtic game in that time, which was a Scottish Cup final, to be fair. It's been pretty eventful in the world of Celtic, so we will be covering all of that. We'll do all that good stuff first. And as you can probably tell in my voice, I had a couple last night. Right, anyway, let's get on with all that good stuff. That means do hit the subscribe button if you've not already. Big Tony brings in the subscribers. If you want to give us a wee like, a share, slag my hair, crack on. If you want to become a Bhoycie Bus member, like so many of you have, then feel free to do so. You can join the likes of Pam, Gary Brown, Teresa Lyle, Ryan Taylor. They're all Bhoycie Bus members. It's totally optional. All the content remains free, thankfully. And also remember as well, Tony thought this was me on the wind-up last time. ED Pharmacy. If you want to not have to retire at 32 like Aaron Moy, but you want to go that wee bit longer, then head over to edpharmacy.co.uk, scan the QR code, use bus 10 at the checkout, discreetly packaged, same-day delivery in central Scotland. Final order cut-off for that is 6 p.m. If not, it'll be the next day delivery. And keep your weekends going and make them that wee bit hornier. Right, okay, Tony, what's happening, mate? It's such an awkward way to bring you into the shows, man. I love that. Just when you exit us. Right, mate, June, the month it was, kicked off with a different manager in charge than what we've got in situ right now. We had a Scottish Cup final. It completed a treble, a fifth in 8 years. How was that for the start to June? And where we are now at the end of June, it is a surreal thing being a Celtic fan sometimes. I think the month of June 2023 completely encapsulates why we're so in love and so hate at the same time, the love that we have, because it is a roller coaster being a Celtic fan.
Mental. It was a crazy month. I felt 1 minute I was singing Ange Postecoglou's name at the top of my lungs as we completed a world record 8th treble. And then the next minute I was responding to an email for Celtic to go to Brendan Rodgers unveiling. Totally mad. Obviously we'll get to that, but I think quite a few of the so-called fan media, 4 Times were invited. Darren went for us and met Brendan Rodgers, and obviously he's unveiling the press conference, and he says he was brilliant. I think everybody says he was great. I know he went round all the kind of fan media outlets and shook everybody's hand just before the press conference started. So
I've seen that.
I think Brendan's, as I said before, he's very clever, and I think he's obviously knows he needs to get some fans on side. I'm not one of the people that he doesn't need to prove anything to me. I was on here, I don't know what it was, just after the treble, and I was advocating for him coming back. I says he was the right candidate, and I give the board a bit of credit for it. I think to go and get somebody of his quality, irrespective of how he left, and obviously that's kind of been talked about to death now. He's an outstanding manager. I mean, he's come up against and beaten the best in the world, and he's beaten some of them comprehensively. Arsene Wenger, I think his team 4-0 up in 20 minutes, 5 into Pep City. He's beaten Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, etc., etc. I think we know his credentials. So to get him back really softened the blow of losing Postecoglou. Funnily enough, I was sitting last night, and my YouTube recommended was Ange's first interview as Tottenham manager, and I thought, can I really watch this? But I did. And I listened to it, then at the end of it, I don't really know how I felt. It's just been such a crazy month. I'm sure a lot of Celtic fans agree. And Aaron Moy's retired, who was a big part that after the World Cup for us, really played his part, and obviously wish him well, and sorry he's had to retire so young. Jota looks as though he's going to be leaving for a huge sum to the new superpower. I mean, the Saudis have... it was funny, I was on Twitter going, oh, this is great to see the Saudis stick the boot into the Premier League and take all their players. And next minute, I just seen Jota's face in one of the yellow strips. I thought, oh, maybe I've spoke too soon. They've come after us. So, no, the fixtures are obviously out as well. I think there's a rumour going about we're about to break a transfer fee for a player. I don't know who that player is. I'm not really in the know. So Aye, it was a mental month for just having one game, but it's exciting. All you can be is excited, and we talk about having this model of constantly evolving, and that's going to involve our big players moving, reinvesting the money and going again. Over the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 summer windows, we've lost Dembele, we lost Edward, Ayer. We've lost big players, and we've had a reasonably good hit rate of replacing them. Postecoglou was outstanding at that.
I think as well, when you actually look at it, if there has been a refocusing or a new direction taken in terms of the transfer strategy, Tony, I think Celtic wanted their cake and they wanted to eat it. You know what I mean? They have their cake and eat it, if you know what I mean. I think they wanted to sell and get the big fees for players and then try and replace them still at the same level consistently that they've always paid, rather than going, okay, we got a wee bit more for Kieran Tierney, for example, than we got the summer before for Dembele. Maybe now we branch out a wee bit more. Instead, we just seem to stay on the same trajectory in terms of what our ceiling was in transfers. And I think straight away when you find out Brendan's going to be breaking our own wage structure in terms of, you know, the highest paid manager in history since Brendan Rodgers, of course, which I like, and I bet he likes it as well. Not just that, I think that then leads you down the path of going, right, with that in mind, maybe you'll see that replicated in transfers. I said for day one, I think we'll break the transfer record at least once this summer. Do you know what I mean? Let's go back to the Scottish Cup. Now, I don't know how much of the bus you've been able to catch since your last appearance, and don't worry, Tony, I didn't expect you to have to watch them all. Do you know what I mean? Or any of them, really. But I was basically saying I did a conspiracy theory, right? And I said I actually think Celtic, for once, realised what was going on under their noses. Now, my biggest criticism of the club has been far too often they've been reactive, not proactive. I actually think Dermot Desmond, getting that photo that went round, I think Desmond, Postecoglou said a verbal nod like, yeah, we'll deal with the new contract in the summer, but it's a thumbs up from me. And at the same time, he's phoned his agent and went, you still pushing the Spurs thing? And he's like, yeah. I think he was hedging his bets, if you like. Dermot Desmond was a multi-billionaire. He doesn't suffer fools. He's read it. And I think you've seen Brendan Rodgers at that Scottish Cup semi-final as an SFA ambassador or some shit. Who the fuck came up with that idea? I wonder. I think that was Celtic's, showing a wee bit of clout, and I think they've known that Brendan was coming back for a wee while. I think Postecoglou was away this summer, whether he liked it or not. I think the Spurs thing was actually a relief for him in the end that he got it, because I think we'd already made plans for his departure because they've been able to get rid of them. In comes your boys, Tony. What a great head of hair. And Tony's there as well. Love that. Love it. Podcast friends. But I think, again, with the Rodgers situation coming in as well, Tony, it's something that we should be really excited about. But again, let's start with lifting the treble. Did you have any feeling that day? Because we kind of, well, I was going to say we knew, we didn't know, but we speculated on the bus after the game. He's done, isn't he? Postecoglou. It felt, for whatever reason, it kind of came over.
I thought he was gone well before that. I thought even Trophy Day, I thought he would leave. In terms of your conspiracy theory, I don't think he gave a verbal nod. I think they had a discussion, and I think the Dermot Desmond was never left on a verbal nod. As he says, he's a very intelligent billionaire. I think Ange would have says, no, what, I don't want to sign a new deal. And I think that's when they were probably been thinking for quite a long time, this guy could leave us. I don't think they would have sacked him and brought Brendan back if he says, I want to stay. I think they knew that he was probably wanting to go to the Premier League, and that's fine. Best of luck to him. But I thought he was leaving. In terms of when it was Leeds and Leicester and different rumours, it was squashed, whereas this time it was all, don't want to talk about it, and the odds just kept coming in. I know the bookies is just obviously down to who's putting money where, but I thought, why is anybody betting Ange Postecoglou for Spurs boot knowledge? And then the likes of your Fabrizio Romano started commenting on it, and I remember thinking, that was my issue. 35,000, he's screaming his name, not even singing about the treble, screaming his name at full time, willing to stay, and it made no difference. And that for me, that was when I was thinking, I'd love to leave this league. I really would. I'd love to leave the league, because if we were in the Premier League,
yeah, of course,
Postecoglou leave us for Spurs? No, he doesn't.
No, I agree. Very
So-
quickly, Tony, I want to talk to you just about the final because I think Mark made a point the other day on the bus, and he was. It made me think. He goes, I feel a little bit guilty that I've not actually acknowledged the achievement of a treble this year anywhere like as much as what we should be. And that is because that story completely clouded over it, and almost we'd moved on from the treble almost instantly after the final. We were all talking about body language, and Dermot and Peter Lowell didn't look happy in the stands. And is that Postecoglou? See the way he waved there? Does that mean he's waving goodbye? Kind of, if you shake your hand 3 times to the right. I'm like, what? It just felt like maybe we should acknowledge the team's achievement because whilst I don't think we'd been at our absolute best for the last couple of months, and I think that's played a part in maybe not giving it the respect it deserves as well. A treble's still a treble, and as you rightfully point out, it's a world record treble that's happened in our lifetime. It's our 5th in the last 8 years. These are blessed times that we live in being a Celtic fan. It really is, and sometimes the other dramas that go on, and there are many of them, kind of overshadow what should be something that we do allow ourselves to take a step back from and give it the credit it deserves.
No, a huge achievement, and I think the story before the treble. I think the other thing was for a month. I think everybody was 99% sure we'd won it, because that's not a slant in Inverness, but it would have been the biggest upset ever if Inverness beat us in that final. It was just, I think we declared ourselves the winners of the treble the second the game finished against Rangers, the semi-final. A lot of people seen that as a treble. Hence, it was all just focused on Postecoglou stayed, who are we going to get next? Then I think he left on the Tuesday, and then all attention just switched to who's going to be the next manager. So don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. I was well oiled when we won it, and I'd kind of accepted that he would leave, and I thought Spurs was just too big an opportunity to turn down because they are a notorious top 6 side, and even the fact of getting no European football and they're struggling, I think that's exactly what Postecoglou loves. I think he loves a challenge to go in and rejuvenate football clubs, and he done it for us. He won 5 out of 6 trophies, including that treble. So for me, I was maybe a bit annoyed at the time, but I don't hold any bitterness, and I'm just looking forward to. I've started doing a few more YouTube videos on the Pod Tim's channel with Kieran, and excited's just a word that I keep using to have Brendan Rodgers back. I mean, I think Brendan Rodgers is a phenomenal manager. He's a very good coach. He works well with players. You listen, I mean, I think Luis Suarez was out praising him recently, one of the great strikers in the last kind of 20 years.
I'm going to put you on the spot, Tony.
Yeah.
Is Brendan Rodgers an upgrade?
Yes. And that's no slant on Postecoglou. Postecoglou is a fantastic manager. Loved it. If you'd have said to me the day of the Scottish Cup final, if you'd offered me any other manager in the world apart from Postecoglou, I said no, because it just worked. But when Brendan was here the first time, I felt the same, whereby I would not have swapped him for anybody in the world. Whereas when Lennon was here, I would have swapped him for you. So...
Fucking hell. Didn't he encourage me to? I'll put in an application next time round.
So, he's a better manager. He's achieved more in the game. He's got more games at the highest level. He's managed hundreds of games in the Premier League. He's competed for Premier League titles. He's beaten all the best managers in the Premier League. He beat the Champions League winners to an FA Cup at the time in 2021 when he beat Chelsea. He competed for 9 trophies in Scotland. We won all 9. Postecoglou did drop a Scottish Cup. So, as much as I love Big Ange,
we drop Scottish Cups now if we don't win it. That's what's happening. We're so conditioned to trebles.
We don't win trebles. It's a fucking disaster. So, no, look, I love Big Ange, and I wish he would have stayed. I'd loved him to stay for another 3 or 4 years and become a legendary manager, become a kind of Neil type figure, whereby he's built a legacy. But that's just not football anymore. That game's up. I'm afraid we can't compete financially with the Premier League or the Saudis or whoever it may be. It's just we're a big fish in a shitey pond, and that's the way it is. And but no, I think it is an upgrade, which is impressive. It usually doesn't happen when you see us lose a great manager. It's unusual you lose a manager on such a high. And then go, and it would have been very Celtic like to go and get somebody who wasn't as good. But they've obviously
agreed massively, mate.
I I think they've learned for going for Rodgers to Lennon, whereby this time they've went, let's upgrade, let's go for Ange to Brendan, because they must know that if you speculate to accumulate in football, it usually works, and it has worked for Celtic, it worked the last time. No guarantees it'll work this time, but it seems a reasonably good model for me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think this is the first time we've seen maybe. I believe that Brendan Rodgers is more of a Dermot Desmond production than the board. I think obviously the board would have had to have said yes, but I think Dermot just looks at them and goes, "Didn't even bother arguing. It's happening anyway." And when it comes to the Rodgers appointment, it's one of those ones where it's the first time Dermot seems to have been heavily involved when we're in a position of strength. Normally he comes in when it's like, oh, for fuck's sake. I think Martin O'Neill came in, there's Tony away. Must have been something I said. Can't blame the guy, you know what I mean? It's my part. My part's shite. But like I was saying, I think when guys like, you're right there, Tony. I thought somebody said, mate.
No, sorry. I went to start reading the comments and I ended up clicking the wrong thing. Sorry.
Oh, no, I wouldn't have blamed you, mate. Honestly, it's absolutely fine. Totally understandable. So I'm just getting going. I've just picked up the ball.
Sometimes you're talking, I like to just have a quick kind of look at some comments, see what people are saying. But sorry, on you go.
No, you're fine. So I just think that with the Dermot Desmond nature of the appointment, it's the first time we've seen it from a position of strength, as you say, speculating to accumulate things like this. But then what happens is, and I spoke about it the other week, the narrative almost seemed like anything we could find to have a wee, dig at Celtic's situation as if it was a negative was getting found. And of course, Brendan coming in meant half the team was leaving. Now, naturally, there has been a bit of transfer activity since Brendan arrived. You said that one of your guys was at the unveiling at the press conference. He's shaking everyone's hand. I think that's clever. In terms of player recruitment, I think there's going to be two strategies this summer. I think you'll know a Brendan Rodgers signing when you see it, and I think you'll know a Celtic signing that would have happened no matter who was in charge, sort of sign. I think Holm and Tilio fall into that bracket. I've got no issue with that. It's forward planning stuff, and I don't think that will affect whatever budget Brendan's been given assurances of, and I think you'll know the difference when he brings in players. But it's not just going to be one-way traffic. It's always a revolving door. There has been, obviously, the news that Jota's about to go, and to be honest, he was one of my absolute favourites. I've got to say, I'm really reluctant to see him leave. I'm gutted at that one, to be honest. I think a lot of the time I'm quite, zen when players leave, but Jota, my bastard, I liked him. Do you know what I mean? And I think he'd have kicked on again under Brendan as well. But the money being involved is now scary. I think we're entering into a new era in terms of where the football. So we're talking about trillionaires over there in Saudi Arabia. They don't even declare what money they've got in their banks, mate, because they're connected to royal families and stuff. I think English media being raging at it is so funny because it's their own fucking trick that's getting used back on them and they can't handle it. But we are now entering a realm where everyone's vulnerable to losing their best players, right? Not just Celtic now. Anyone is, because the money on offer to these young guys with young families is just insane. Nobody can blame a player for going and earning 100 grand, 200 grand a week. In some cases, I've seen some folk that was 200 million a year and stuff like that, euros and stuff. I mean, it's crazy, crazy money. With that in mind, though, are we now going to see Celtic, if they are going to be willing to be fluid? I think that was a word that Ange used at the AGM in the transfer market. Do you expect to see more activity now that maybe we didn't expect before, but with this now influence of Saudi in there, because Hatati's been linked as well now?
I think one of the other words he used was aggressive. So I think
like
it will be. I think in terms of, like, for Jota, £25 million for us or whatever it's rumoured to be. I know we need to give Benfica, I think, 30%. So if we net 20 million for the deal, I love Jota. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's been excellent. But if they're offering 192,000 a week tax free, he's on what, probably after tax here, maybe just about 10% of that. You're looking at setting up your family for centuries, and people are saying it's a lack of ambition. The Saudi League's very soonly, or probably already is, most competitive than the Scottish League. Benzema's there, Ronaldo's there, Kante's there, Ziyech's there. Who knows who else is heading that way? You give it a couple of transfer windows, and I reckon the Saudi League are probably much are much better. Bhoycie, would you join mainstream telly for daft money? Of course you would. Of course you would.
I know.
Somebody offered me 192k a week, tax free, to gear up 4 times in a podcast and go to Saudi and talk about
See you later.
you wouldn't see me for dust.
Aye.
So I'd still come on the Bhoycie Bus because you're paying me around the same thing. So
I think the key in that statement as well is for daft money. I think that the beginning of that question, Jerry's irrelevant, but I think once daft money starts getting offered, you kind of everything else just gets put to one side, isn't it? Because daft money's going to win the day.
That's it. I mean, 192,000, and people saying, as I say, is lacks ambition because of that league. That league's soon going to be on the telly. I think they'll eventually be offered into the Champions League as well. I think just because of the money it brings. The thing is, he's 24, goes there for 3 years, come back with 30 million and join Benfica again for the peak of your career, or maybe by that time, as I say, the Saudi clubs will have been granted access to the Champions League and you compete. He's playing with Benzema and Kante. It's a bit of an upgrade on Kyogo and I don't know, Matt O'Reilly or whatever. So
that's it. There's more elite players in the Saudi league than there is in the SPFL by a country mile, and I think we need to as well take a wee step back and go. How many people in Portugal, for example, Jink went, "What the fuck's he doing going to Scotland?" So
exactly.
think, it's the exact same way that people here are now looking at, oh, that's an easy way out. That's a career nosedive. I'm like, are you sure? I think you're on the cusp of watching a league that's about to, as you say, blow up, could potentially be involved in Champions League in the future as well, and they'll probably just pay their way into that also. Fuck knows, man. But I think that league's, you're right, you're going into its early foundations, do you know what I mean? And I think it's probably the most exciting time to join it. As for the SPFL, I think that was a far harder sell, to convince the Portuguese football universe that Jota had made a good move going to play against fucking Ross County and that. Like, oh, aye. And yet here's us getting all fucking on our high horse about a guy going to earn hundreds of thousands, millions of pounds and playing in a league where Cristiano Ronaldo and so many others are now, plying their trade. It seems bizarre to me how, again, I just think it's stupid looking at it that way. Would you be surprised now? I don't know. I'm going to guess the answer to this is no. But if there was that step up in interest in Hatate next,
well, I'd read that his agent says Hatate plans on staying in Europe, so I would probably be surprised. But again, your agent may say one thing and then the Saudis turn around and go, "What about 200 grand tax free a week?" And they offer us 30 million euros again. It's not a one-way street. I think Celtic, if they can get 25 million for any player, I think Celtic are probably happy to sell. We've not quite bridged that gap of starting to sell for really silly money. I think if ever there was a league to try and sell for really daft money, it would be the Saudis, due to the fact they have got these crazy wages. I know a lot of people think it might go the way that when the Chinese Super League started signing big players, but I just feel there's something different. The fact that they're pinpointing young, good talent in Europe that have got potential to grow, such as Jota. I think it might do well. I think the Saudis are already they've played a big part in changing golf. They play a big part in boxing. That they won't stop at football. I'm no doubt they'll go to America and look at the NBA and different sports that way. Maybe tennis as well. I don't know. And they can make these kind of billion-dollar industries. But for me, I don't hold anything against Jota. He's been an excellent player to watch. He's helped us win 5 out of 6 trophies. Whatever he does with his career, see whether people say, "Oh, he's throwing his career away." It makes no difference to Celtic whether he goes to Saudi, if he goes to Spain, if he goes to Mars. It makes no difference to us because he's no longer going to be at the club. So it doesn't really bother me. I just wish him well. And I think for years, whenever anybody's left us, we're very quick to kind of stick the boot into them and I'd really take offence to them wanting to leave us. But for me, I just wish him well. And but the main thing is, as I say, is about being aggressive. Reinvest that money right away. Give it to Brendan Rodgers. Who have you pinpointed? Who's your replacement? who's Champions League ready. Let's not be looking at projects. Let's not penny pinch and take a chance. You didn't expect to get this money. You thought Jota was maybe staying. He's in a long contract. Give Brendan the money, reinvest, and let's get somebody that's potentially better, younger and better, that we can keep recycling the same model with.
I think right now there's an adaptation period as well, Tony, for us fans to get used to. I think the romance of Celtic is actually is a larger than life sort of feeling that we have for Celtic than a lot of football fans do for their club, and maybe because our league's a wee bit behind in other ones and it's not got the resources. I think other football fans have kind of evolved their thinking way before we have, and we've always been kind of reluctant to look at it with this ruthless sort of business is business sort of eye. It means so much more to us than that. Do you know what I mean? However, I think Ange has initiated a sort of change in how we view things, and maybe a reality check. To be honest, that the law of the land has moved now, and players, managers alike have cycles that are way, way shorter than before. And whilst they may look like they're enjoying themselves at the time, and I've got no doubt that Jota will say Celtic's his favourite club in 15 years once he's retired and all that bullshit. But when you're in the situation, and as you say, money talks, guys are going to come, guys are going to go. But what we need to remember is Celtic for once, and I like the word aggressive that Ange had said as well, fluid, and I think more ambitious this time around, and I think the managerial appointment sums that up. If that's going to be the case, then whilst replacing guys that are costing, we're selling for 30 million, isn't going to be something that's an easy trick to manoeuvre. I think the more you spend, the more the percentage rate of it being a success increases, and I think Celtic will take us down a different path. There's a lot of talk in the live chat tonight, Tony, and I've got to be honest, I've got no idea what they're on about. But a lot of folk, a lot of the passengers talking about a £16 million player or something. Apparently, have you heard anything about this?
I mentioned it earlier on. There's a kind of rumour that I think it was in the huddle board. I think it was a username SD23. I'm sure if that's wrong, somebody can correct me, and says that apparently we've offered to break our previous transfer record by 7 million. So that's obviously people taking into account the 9 million for Edward, which is his current record. So apparently that's on the cards. I don't know who that player would be. I think I seen somebody saying Didi for Leicester. But again, it's just kind of speculation. But that would be good if we're going to go out and spend money. Obviously, it wouldn't be good if the guy's shite. But if you're going to go out and spend money on these kind of ready-made players, you need... I think hopefully it's in a kind of strong midfielder. Somebody can really push us forward, win the ball, be aggressive in the midfield for these Champions League games and for the derby games as well. I think we need to be a bit stronger. I think that was maybe an issue like the last time with Brendan as well. A bit lightweight, and Ange's teams were a bit lightweight as well. I'm not saying stick the boot in, but just be a bit more compact and a bit more kind of dynamic as well.
But this is the thing as well. Have we been in a space where we've almost found ourselves conditioned to wet the bed a wee bit when we hear rumours of, Celtic can't afford this, Celtic can't afford that, and everything? I think at times we get overly panicky as a fan base than what you actually should be. We should be excited if Celtic's going to spend £60 million and let the money men know that that's not going to be spent, in that's going to leave Celtic vulnerable in the future to do a Sevco or do a Rangers, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's something we need to trust these guys with. I think if they think they can afford to spend 60 million, then let them do it and embrace it and be excited. And by the way, I think, as I say, Jota leaving for maybe over 25 million. Tierney was the last player to leave for that sort of amount. We'll see more and more of that as well. It's going to be a two-way street. I'm excited at the thought of Celtic pushing the boundaries. I think 19 years between transfer records for Celtics in terms of spent for Chris Sutton, Dodson, Edward. We've got to be the only club that featured regularly in the Champions League in that era who didn't beat his transfer record in nearly 2 decades. That's just fucking unfathomable, really. And I don't think it shows much sign of progression. And I don't mean spending money for money's sake. I just mean it's a natural outcome that occurs when you keep progressing and keep evolving. And if that's not happening, then it probably tells you probably our European form will have stagnated, which again, the facts and the stats don't lie. I wonder as well, in terms of Rodgers coming back, what changes do you think he's going to try and implement to this team going forward. Maybe, Jake, maybe I'm a wee bit quick to ask that because it may well take us to see the first few signings that he makes, and then you'll start getting a grip of what sort of identity he's going for. He did talk a lot about power, Tony, when he was there. He felt the team, and I think what he's meaning by that is that in terms of physical profile, I would have to tend to agree. I think that the Celtic side right now is, for technically being a very gifted team, it is on the small side. I remember Gordon Strachan said that about Scotland years ago and got panned for it. I think they maybe simplified it a wee bit too much what he was actually meaning. And I think Brendan's looking at it and going, we do need a wee bit more power in the team. But I also think it's easy to fall in this trap that only Ange has ever played rock and roll football that was at 100 mile an hour. I know that recent memory bias always plays its part, but at times under Rodgers, we were an electric team as well then. Do you know what I mean? It's not like the wheel was reinvented with Ange. It was just a refreshing change from what had been an extremely low point as well, the 18 months prior.
I mean, even Lennon's first season back, we played some great stuff as well. I remember being 4-0 up.
3-5-2.
Yeah,
The 3-5-2 change was class too, eh? Remember that?
Just before COVID, because I remember being 4-0 up at half time in Postecoglou. We absolutely blew them away, and Edward was in great form. So, no, Ange didn't reinvent the wheel. I think it was just after the kind of COVID season we needed a right injection and the play and the players had just gone stale that kind of season. But some of the stuff Rodgers' first season was phenomenal. Some of the doings we dished out were great, and some of the European performances were decent as well. You need to remember that the qualifiers, they really get through them. Second year with flying colours against Astana. First year, obviously, Hapoel Beersheva. The second leg, I think,
That's right.
Time off their life watching that, because I think we beat them 5-2 at Parkhead and then get beat 2-0 over there and just went through. So, no, but Rodgers' teams are capable of playing outstanding stuff. I know a lot of people moan about the second season and then the start of the third wasn't great, but overall the football was good. I thought I enjoyed watching Brendan's team play. I don't think it'll be... Don't know if he'll invert the fullbacks. He's more having the fullbacks overlapping. I think you've seen that with Kieran Tierney. One of the goals we scored against Man City in the 3-each game comes for Tierney bombing it. And then I think it's a deflection for the second goal at Celtic Park. So I think that'll be a change where I don't think he'll invert. He'll want the fullbacks bombing it. So it'll be interesting to see how Greg Taylor does. I think Alistair Johnson will adapt. I think he's a great player, so I think he'll adapt really well. I'm looking forward to... Hopefully we can keep a hold of most of the players. I'm looking forward to seeing them next season.
Very much so. Now, you did say a wee name there in the terms of Kieran Tierney. Do you think, and I know people go, oh, you can't say that, wages are crazy, etc. Just fucking have a wee bit of imagination, for the love of God. We're allowed to. It's meant to be fun being a Celtic fan, not like, we're not the accountants, for fuck's sake. Do you think they would even consider or remotely attempt to do some sort of loan deal for the bold KT?
I don't know. If they think they can get him, then absolutely. He's a very good player. He's obviously these problems with injury. It's not quite worked out down at Arsenal. I thought he'd have been playing for Man City or Real Madrid, but no, that's how good I really thought Kieran Tierney was. I really thought he was going to the highest level. I think if Eddie Howe wants him, he'll go to Newcastle and he'll play Champions League football with them.
I agree with that.
If Brendan wants him, then it's definitely worth asking the question: would you come and loan and we'll match half the wages or whatever it is? Because I think we could give him 40 grand a week. I think he's on 80. I don't know did he sign a new deal? Maybe it's more than that. But Brendan Rodgers wants him and he's fit. Then again, absolutely go for it.
Do you know what, mate? See if, as you just said there, see if Celtic fucking asked the question, that'd be enough for me. That would show me that we mean business this summer. Whatever the outcome is after that. You can't ever hold any gripes with, well, Celtic did actually ask the question this time. It wasn't, just the usual, oh, we couldn't do that. Oh, that's, fuck it. If Brendan says, no, I think there's a chance, all right, well, we'll do our absolute fucking best to go get him for you. And if that means he doesn't then arrive, I don't mind that. Statements of intent, though, would be made. And, that'd be fucking... That would be mind-blowing if we seen Brendan Rodgers and KT back at Celtic in the same season.
The thing is, I don't, because people are already saying go and get the belly, go and get Stuart Armstrong, and I don't think they could do it. I don't think we should just start signing all the kind of players they had the first time. But I would make an exception for Tierney because I think he's a very good player. I don't know what your chat thinks of that. I'll have a look at the comments if people want him.
Let's bring some in. I mean, Patrick McLaughlin's concerned. He thinks that could demoralise Taylor by bringing in a loan signing. Again, that's not our fucking problem. If we're making decisions based on worrying about demoralising a player because competition's coming in, whether it's on loan or whether it's permanent, that can't dictate your thinking. Your thinking's got to be about, am I improving my team? And as we were saying earlier, that ruthless streak has to be shown. I've got one other name for you, Tony. I'm just having a bit of fun here. This isn't part of the June review, right? It's just a wee daft suggestions, okay? I also think if we were in a space where we might be asking for a KT on loan, for example, I wonder if there's another guy that of a similar stature in the EPL, not getting his regular playing time at a massive club in England, also Scottish international.
Are you going to say McTominay?
Yep.
I would take McTominay, definitely.
That power he's talking about in the team, that would be a focal point in that midfield that we don't have in terms of the sort of strength. And I've been so impressed with him recently as well. Do you know that? And I know it's easy saying that when I'm not the biggest like Scotland fan. I don't mean that in a bad way, but if I'm watching a game, I will take it all in. But if I've missed it, I don't really care, right? The last couple I watched that he's playing, I was like, fucking hell, that guy is well better than even I thought he was. And that's not just for the goals. It's in terms of his overall input. And I just wonder if we're in this summer of love right now, and it's a summer, it's the silly season, as they say. I don't see any harm again in asking that question and putting the pressure on maybe United, because McTominay gets wind of it and suddenly he goes, oh no, I fancy that for a loan. And then he can start speaking to the club and try and sort of engineer it. We see it happen all the time. That would be one again that would pique my interest. Maybe a lazy shortlist from our point of view, Tony, but we're going with it anyway.
Funnily enough, I spoke to a former Celtic and Manchester United player back in October about McTominay, and he basically says that United's academy is so far ahead of Celtic's that McTominay is better than anything that Celtic produced. And I says, oh, you say he's better than Callum McGregor, and this former Manchester United and Celtic player said at the time he was. And I kind of argued with him on the case, but I think McTominay would do very well up here. And I think he would probably fit in a midfield with McGregor perfectly. So, again, these are the kind of players where they maybe haven't quite done what they want at their club, but if Brendan gets a hold of them, look at when he got a hold of Scott Sinclair, took him to another level that first season, took Tierney to another level. Armstrong was absolutely dreadful last 6 months under Dyler, and he rejuvenated him. Everybody improved. Scott Brown looked as though he was... he'd kind of finished at Celtic, and Brendan turned into a quadruple treble winning captain and a Celtic legend. So I think whoever's coming in, whether it's maybe one of these EPL players that it's not quite working, whether it's a young talent that wants to develop more, I think Brendan Rodgers is the right manager to have in place for these kind of signings, whatever way it is.
Why make a box office managerial appointment if you're not going to be considering box office signings? And I think maybe there has been a change of tack. And I don't want it to be reckless either. I think we can temper our expectations that this is going to be something mental that you see in the EPL by, we don't want to be spending money like say Bournemouth spend, you know what I mean? That'd be proper wild, which is fucking crazy, but it's the truth. However, looking back on the month of June, Tony, we're going into July now. It cannot be as wild again, can it? July's surely not going to be as up and down. I remember saying after the Scottish Cup final, we're probably going to cut the shows down to 45 minutes now, guys, and it might be a wee bit more sporadic. It's been a busy season on the bus, and do you know what I mean? We don't want to overdo it. We've done more shows in the last month since the season fucking ended. I have a feeling July might be just as bonkers if people are suggesting there's going to be transfer records broke. Of course, that's going to cause a stir. When you're selling guys for our team for just shy of 30 million quid, that's going to cause a stir. I just wonder how this is all going to pan out, and I don't want it to be too chaotic. But do you know what the biggest difference is, pal? Right? And I think this is underestimated. And credit to Ange, because he's the guy who's achieved it the last 2 years. But the automatic group stage, mate, without those fucking qualifiers is such a game changer for us, because your window shortens and becomes one of a tightrope. Where do you stick or do you twist? Do you twist in the hope that will ensure you navigate the qualifiers? And if you don't, you've just spent money you ain't going to bring back in through tournament revenue. Or you sit back, as Celtic tended to do, trust what you've got to get you through the qualifiers, and if you make the group stage, then maybe then you can spend a wee bit. See all these conundrums not having them, pal, and being already in that group stage, it extends your summer. And I don't mean that just from the players' point of view, but I think from there's no panic to get guys in, and there's no level we need to be going at this. Well, we can afford to spend this because we've not actually got the Champions League money yet. It's completely transparent what Celtic's future holds in terms of finance, and that makes the book a lot easier to sort of read for managers, knowing what type of players they can bring in, and there's less of that rush, less of that desperation almost to try and get guys in the door that can help you. I mean, they've got 2 qualifiers, other team across the city, and you do think that, fuck that. It's a complete lottery, do you know what I mean? And I do feel that it does give you a completely different sort of summer complexion, shall we say, than what we've been accustomed to time and time again.
Absolutely. I mean, I hated the qualifiers, and they're the most tense, horrible things because of stake. Everybody wants to play the Champions League. The effect the money's going to have. Celtic should be a Champions League club, and see when you miss out, like the last time we missed out, like Clues. You remember Clues under Lennon? Obviously, Ferencváros again. It's such a kick in the balls.
I know.
Start of the season if you don't quite make it. We were quite good at kind of bouncing back whenever we didn't quite make it, but still, it's such a hard one to take when AEK Athens put you out, or Clues, or Maribor, or Malmo, and you go, they're horrible games, and you're just desperate to win them. Rodgers was good at navigating them. I think out the two, what was it? He won 2 kind of out of 3, got us in twice. Ange obviously managed to get us in for last season and for this season without any qualifiers. So, and another thing, I'm skipping well ahead.
No, carry on.
Just before we go to Ibrox, Rangers will be playing a qualifier that week. So that might, or you don't know what could happen. They could go extra time and penalties. They could pick up a couple of injuries. They could get knocked out. They could go through it. It gives them an extra boost. So it has so many different kind of knock-on effects, these ties. So I'm delighted we won't be playing any. I'm just looking forward to seeing who we get in the group. Hopefully a competitive group. Hopefully it's not a stupid group like Man City, Real Madrid and RB Leipzig or something, because we would struggle even with a £16 million spending spree. So, big credit to Ange for winning the league twice in a row.
Exactly.
Sure we don't need to play these games because they're horrible. I mean, you could be sitting just before your league campaign starts, you need to go to fucking Kazakhstan or Azerbaijan, or it's just it's not what you want. It's not the pre-season you want. I think it gives Rodgers the time to really spend the next month with the squad, embed his new signings. He's not worrying about these qualifiers, can focus on the league, go full steam ahead when it starts. Postecoglou away, second game, big game. Make sure we start fast and really gives the squad the time to gel and give them the kind of lot of kind of midweek breaks before the Champions League groups kick off. So no, for me, hated them. Absolutely hated them.
The shoe is on the other foot now as well, and it does sort of make you think these things as well can set the tone for the season. I remember, actually look at the third season under Rodgers, we went in before a league game had been played in a toxic almost environment, where Terminado had been said, Boyard we turned down £9 million for, he refused to play against Athens, if you remember. We'd had main targets unable to be brought in, because I think Celtic were hedging their bets on, we'll see how we do against AEK, then do it. Whereas, of course, if you're a manager, then you go, but we've turned over 100 million 2 years in a row because of my Champions League group stage. I think I've now earned the credit in the bank for you to kind of speculate, as you said earlier, Tony, to accumulate. I just think all that fucking side story, or that side show, I should say, not being there is a big benefit for us going into the season, and it allows us more time to get in the right possible targets. Now, when we look back at June, it'll be one, Tony, where we say goodbye to Ange, and I think history will be kind to him. I know there's a wee bit of heat out there right now. I think overall, if we were to sum up his 2 years at Celtic, and I know it's only 2 years, and people will say, never a legend now or anything like that, and legends would be a strong word. But I do think, and I know what you're saying about legacy as well, maybe he's not got that. But what he's certainly done is set up Celtic for success going forward. And I think he deserves a hell of a lot of credit for doing that almost single-handedly at first, if you know what I mean.
For me, you look at what Postecoglou walked into. This club was at war with itself. It was at war with its fans. The fans had spent October to February arguing over the sacking of Lennon. Social media was a bomb site. There was protests against the board. There was protests against the manager. There was people turning up outside the stadium after the Ross County defeat. The club was a mess, and we finished 25 points behind Rangers and didn't win any trophies. Since he's come in, we've played Champions League football. We've won a treble and become world record holders for trebles. He's signed a lot of good players. It looks as though one of his signings is just about to go for close to a record fee for us. We're in the Champions League again. We've got a really good young squad of players. And for me, unbelievable memories. It might only have been 2 years, but by God, you ask anybody in this chat, I bet you they all loved that 3-0 game. Late at night, Celtic Park, atmosphere absolutely rocking, still celebrating the second goal, and we scored the third. That felt like Celtic Football Club was back. That's the way it felt, because we'd lost our way for a period of time, and we hadn't beat them for a long period, and he came in and he really turned the screw to win that league title. Remember, he won the league title against the Europa League finalists. They weren't a bad team. They might tell you now they were a bad team, but they weren't. We were just a better team.
I agree with that.
Ibrox, we only 800 fans there. This season, beat them 4-0. Went toe-to-toe with Real Madrid. Okay, didn't quite work, but there were signs there that we were having a go, and it was exciting to watch. The League Cup win against them was outstanding. He beat them in every competition to ensure we won our 8th treble. So, for me, thanks a million, Ange. Great memories, great songs, a lot of hangovers, but it's all about Brendan now. It's all about Brendan Rodgers. So for me, I'm going to watch some of these games at Spurs. I'm intrigued. I can't help but be intrigued.
It is intriguing. It is, yes.
Very intriguing. If he goes down there and smashes it, it probably reflects well on us, and as long as he doesn't come back and try and take any of the players, if that's the case, he can fuck off. And I take back everything I've just said. But no, for me, he could have been a legend if he stayed longer. Smoky Scotsman, you're absolutely spot on. But managers seem to be coming back these days. Who knows? Maybe it won't work at Spurs. The Saudis will offer Brendan 50 million in a couple of weeks. Before you know it, it's all back to the beginning. So no, for me, a great 2 years. I loved meeting him. I loved talking to him in his press conferences. I loved his football. I loved his story. I don't think he was a bluffer. I think he loved it up here, and I think he made a career decision, and that's okay for me. Absolutely fine.
And I actually think it works two ways. I think actually because of Brendan's example when he went to Leicester a few years before, and I know that was mid-season, it was slightly different, but I actually think that's sort of allowed us now to understand that sometimes managers can make career decisions. It doesn't mean they don't love Celtic still, or they didn't love their time at Celtic. It's you know what I mean? It doesn't need to be so binary that everyone's black and white that way. And I think as well, because Rodgers has now came back, of course, like let's not get too carried away with that rat patter or anything, do you know what I mean? Because it could be, as you say, Postecoglou back, Ange's back in a few years' time. You never know. You just never know. I am intrigued by what will lie ahead now. I do think I agree with you when it comes to where Postecoglou was when he took over. It wasn't, as you say, just a team that needed rebuilt. It was the fucking whole holy trinity, as Brendan calls it. You know, that it was a mess. I mean, I've never seen it so bad. It was sack the board. There was days being counted and all that in the banners, if you remember, how long it had been. I mean, the board played musical chairs, and I think I'll be honest, I think they got fucking lucky that it was Ange that came in. However, in that time, I think it's been a wake-up call for them. They seem to have got their shit together as well, which obviously is quite exciting for us. What's now looking a wee bit ahead, and based on the roller coaster of a month that June's had, I would say probably expect the unexpected. But knowing that Celtic are willing to spend record wages on a Brendan Rodgers, right? Knowing that the assurances he will have got will have been pretty substantial and pretty compelling for him to take him away from a year's sabbatical and come back to a place where he knew, it could be a wee bit dodgy here. With that in mind, and then you start factoring in another 30 million or 25 million pounds for likes of Jota. How are we going to describe success, Tony, going into this season? And what are you going to be judging it on? Is it as you said earlier, treble? If you don't even have a treble, it's a disaster. I know it was tongue in cheek, by the way. Yeah, how do we describe what a successful Celtic season will be in 23-24?
It's a good question. I think it's difficult to say because I don't want to say we need to do this in the Champions League, because if we do get that kind of horror group, then regardless, we could spend 160 million and probably play Man City and really struggle just because of the money they've got. So I don't want to come out and say we need to do this. For me, the league title is paramount. It's always your bread and butter. The cups, I mean, for us, we need to be looking to win everything. I'm not saying if we don't, it's a disaster or a poor season. I think if we weren't to win the league, that would be a really a bad season for us because we're so used to it. I think European, Brendan's coming back. He can't be coming back just for domestic success. I think he's coming back because there is this kind of idea now we need to start being a serious club in Europe. I think Postecoglou's instilled that and the board want to continue on. If we get a favourable group, I think we need to be looking at post-Christmas European football, and we need to be looking to win a post-Christmas knockout tie, because it's coming up for the 20 years since we've done it when Tomo scored against Barcelona. I think we're in the 3 years Brendan's there. That's got to be the starting point for kind of changing how we do in Europe. We need to win a post-Christmas knockout tie, because to go that amount of time, and we've not been up against giants in some of these knockout ties. Bodo Glimt, Copenhagen, Zenit St. Petersburg, Valencia, a good team. Obviously, earlier times, Barcelona, AC Milan, and Juventus. That's fine. I can totally take that. But
of course,
Copenhagen we should have beat in the Europa League. Zenit we should have done much better than we did. Valencia was a struggle. Bodo Glimt we should have done much better than we did. So for me, that's kind of where I'm thinking. I also feel as though we're due a big scalp in Europe as well. I totally convinced myself Postecoglou was going to beat the Aberdeen. Totally, and he nearly did. If he could get the first goal, then I think we would have got a result. But I think a big scalp, something that's what our history's built on. 1967, this big European history, and for those kind of years when Steen was in charge, we were semi-finals, finals, we were competing. I think I don't mean we'll get back to that level, but I'd love to go deep in the Europa League if we can. That would be a dream kind of thing for me.
Absolutely. Europe, I think he's been pretty clear is the level of ambition or the yardstick that I think Brendan wants to measure his next 3 years at Celtic by. How also, I meant to ask you this earlier, so forgive me because if we're jumping about a wee bit. How did you feel about him saying at the presser? Because I thought he played it pretty safe. I thought it was cool, composed, measured, and I liked that part of it. How did you feel though about the 3 year guarantee comment. I thought that was maybe the only time I was like, fucking hell, man. Like, 3 years is a hell of a long time in football. If a Man United come in or what that, Brendan, we wouldn't even blame you if you left. Why are you putting words like guaranteeing that? Like, that to me was the only quote out of it all. I thought, ooh. Or he fucking does mean it this time. And if I say, maybe he does mean it, they'll go, you're just back in the exact same space you were in 2016 that quickly. I don't know. It's a weird one, eh?
If you think I'm going to sit on camera and declare Brendan Rodgers will be here for 3 years, you've got another thing coming. I've done a video on Pod Tibbs as well. Says there's fucking no chance I'm saying I believe him 100% because it'll not be long before you're clipped and you're all over Twitter. If Twitter survives, Twitter's a bit of a mess, to be fair. But I don't know if that's true. I mean, now he probably believes he'll be here for 3 years, but if next year the Saudis come into him and say we'll give you 50 million a year or something crazy,
it's a good point, David. It's a good point, mate.
If he said that, there would probably be back to protests and banners by now. So I think, fair play. I think he's got some set of balls to come back up here, I must admit, because he gets some abuse when he left. So he obviously, I think he is a Celtic fan. I think his family are Celtic fans, and I think he could easily have waited and get a Crystal Palace, a Bournemouth, a fucking West Ham or something. I believe.
Jim White said that Crystal Palace were pushing for Rodgers from the get-go, right up to the end of the last season. So they put Hodgson in temporary, and he was like, Brendan was the guy they wanted. So he was like,
maybe. I mean, he's already really achieved legendary stuff. The Invincible treble is legendary. The double treble's legendary. But because of the way he's left, I think most people will struggle to consider him a Celtic legend. But if I look at us now, having these 8 trebles, he kind of, we're Brendan Rodgers, we don't have 8 trebles. I mean, it's as simple as that. We don't hold the world record for trebles. He kick-started the quadruple treble and was mainly responsible for the quadruple treble. So for me, I think he obviously wants to leave a real legacy up here. He's maybe looking at overtaking certain records as well. So if he's here for 3 years, I'll be delighted with that. I'll be really, really happy with that.
Aye. And I mean, again, I think he was in a no-win situation at that press, and I think he actually came out of it looking pretty good. And I think you're right. There's an element of ballsiness and brass-necked sort of vibe that I actually kind of admire. I actually admire it a wee bit. I also think there's got to be do you know what I mean? There's got to be a point where you go, well, you can't have your cake and eat it. If this guy's fucking, saying he's a Celtic man, it's only a Celtic man that would come back into the fire that he left. Do you know what I mean? Where I can't imagine many people, when you consider the abuse, and the abuse he got was fucking bad, right? Like, and I don't blame why fans are upset, and I think he actually acknowledges that he gets it, and I like the fact he said he didn't regret leaving. He said, I don't regret that. That was a business decision. I thought, fair fucks, I like that. And he says, but I do regret the hurt that I caused. And I thought, well, do you know what? Fair play for actually coming back and doing that again, because you will know that when he says the hurt he caused, what he means is really the hate that he caused, because it was shocking at times. And by the way, we were all caught up in it. I couldn't fucking listen to him, man, the first 12 months when he was at Leicester. I thought it was virtue signalling pish, to be honest with you. Tony, when he seemed to find a way to mention Celtic all the time. He's trying to fucking control the narrative still. You fucked off, mate. Leave it be. But as time passes and then you start joining the dots and you actually start looking back at everything he said and you went, actually, if he was telling the truth all those times at Leicester, he's fronted it. He's fucking, he's actually kind of proved it by coming back. He could go, well, I've signposted what I thought. I signposted what I said I would do if the opportunity arose. And I have. Mad, eh? These are strange times, Tony. Are you used to the idea that Brendan Rodgers is the Celtic manager again?
No, because I watched that Postecoglou video of him at Spurs last night. It was like 3 a.m. I was sober, I'd been off a drink, but I'm so happy I'm taxiing people about that are having a drink. I thought, fuck this, I'm not listening to drunk people talk. I'll go to my bed. And I was watching him, and it's him and Chris Davies standing with a Spurs gear on, and I'm going, this is just absolutely bizarre. But I'm all in. I'm all in on Brendan, the Brendan bus.
I love it.
So he's a great football manager. I know there's so many other things that go with it. For me, he's the best candidate. He's a very good football manager. And for me, I just want Celtic to be successful. I don't care who's in the dugout. So I'm just delighted to have him back and looking forward to seeing what he does. I think next week's going to be huge. You're saying about July being his mental. You need to remember, Jota's not even been sold yet. Apparently,
True.
there's two big incomings. There's rumours of Hatate going. Moyes retired. He'll need replaced. We've not even played a pre-season game yet. So I think it's very much a case of just enjoy what's coming. And I know a lot of people will be sad to see Jota go, and so will I. I think he was a great player.
I
Really
agree.
great to watch, some great goals, real performer. But for me, just again, I'm over being really bitter when people leave Celtic. I just want to wish them well and kind of remember the 2 years, which were great. I would be saying this to somebody the other day, Hatate, CCV and Jota. If I had to choose one to go, it would be Jota.
Well, yeah, I get
think
that.
it's so important. I really hope Vickers doesn't go, and Hatate, I think, has got another couple of levels. I think Jota does as well, but I just wouldn't like to lose Hatate. I think him under Rodgers could be a real player. So ideally we keep the majority of the squad, but if we're selling and then reinvesting in who the manager wants, I've got no problem with that kind of aggressive style of transfer policy that Postecoglou spoke about. That's fine with me. And I think the other thing with Brendan coming back, he's not going to be loved the way Postecoglou was or the way it was the first time. But if his team do the business in the park,
Yep.
his team will be, and anybody that's got any gripes against him, if he rocks up to Ibrox and wins, or he gets a big scalp in Europe, they'll not be long before they're chanting and screaming and loving him and all that. But you know what we're like. We're football fans. We're emotional. I mean, if you'd have said to me 2 months ago, who's better, Ange or Rodgers, fucking Ange's miles better. I do hear I'm making a case of an upgrade. So you know what we were like. We're fucking nuts. But
I agree.
that's the fun.
In a roundabout way, though, Tony, right? See, in a roundabout way, just very quickly before we go, because you've been on for ages, pal, and I really do appreciate it. But in a roundabout way, I'm more excited now in this summer than I was before. Make it make sense.
Well, for me, I think Rodgers is a safer pair of hands than Ange. Don't get me wrong, I think Ange would have continued to be successful, but it's just been so crazy. But don't get me wrong, if I went and get Enzo Maresca, for example, I would have been sitting here quite worried. I must admit, I wouldn't be as excited. I'd have been going, fuck, this is a big gamble to take. But I think because Rodgers' kind of track record and how good he is as a manager, I'm quite relaxed and excited. So I think we've obviously still got the South Korea and Japan tour. I think the South Korea tours maybe encountered a bit of difficulty because I know Wolves and Roma have pulled out. So
That's right.
it might just be Japan we go to. I'm not entirely sure, but looking forward to seeing him back in the dugout, and hopefully we'll continue the relationship we have with Celtic and be at a couple of his press conferences and get to ask him some interesting questions. And it looks as though that will continue, so that's always good fun.
No, brilliant. And we look forward to your input as the season goes. We'll be doing this once a month. At the end of the month, we'll be getting Big Tony for the full Tims and a podcast. He'll be joining us at the end of every month to give us a wee review. Thank you for spending your Sunday evening with us. There's 237 watching live right now. Do remember hit that like button, hit subscribe, all that good stuff. And Tony, a big thank you to you, my man. As always, a fucking pleasure, mate. You're a legend, sir.
Can I be shameless and ask people to also subscribe to Pod Tims? So
absolutely, no, of course, go for it, mate.
Some of the OG Pod Tims or 4 Tims in a podcast, we're going to try a YouTube live. We'll do it at a different time for when you're
I didn't
streaming.
push it, mate.
Don't worry. Don't worry about the cunt. So, so if anybody wants to hear me rabbling more nonsense, Pod Turns is we're trying to do a bit more over there. So, but thanks a lot for having me on. It's good fun, and I look forward to talking to you the start of August when Hitati, CCV, and Kyogo have all left to go to Saudi Arabia. Don't have anybody left, and Rodgers has left as well. So we'll
Rodgers to Saudi, you heard on the bus first. See you later.